We'll quickly go through some of the sentences which we did last time and then continue. A while withdrawn in secret phase of thought, her mind moved in a many image the past that lived again and saw its end approach. Withdrawn in secret phase of thought. What are the secret phases of thought? We have phases of sleep, but here we have phases of thought. The entire mental panorama is what Savitri is reviewing for the past. Her mind moved in a many images the past. Now it is that past which lived again and saw its end approach. Dying, it lived imperishably in her. Dying, it, that past, lived imperishably in her. Transient and vanishing from transient eyes, invisible, a fateful ghost of self. Transient and vanishing from transient eyes. Dying, it lived imperishably in her. In other words, the past is a transient, vanishing from transient eyes. Savitri's eyes are not transient. She sees things which are imperishable with eyes which can see the entire past also. She has a kind of a drishti, vision of the whole past. Invisible, a fateful ghost of self. Yeah, well, when it is perishing, it becomes a ghost of self. It bore the future on its phantom breath. That is what Savitri is seeing. Yes, past is dying. Because it is dying, it has become a ghost, but that ghost is now bearing the future on its breast. Along the fleeting events' far backward trail because she is going back into time, back to the beginning of time itself. Regress the stream of the insistent hours, and on the bank of the mysterious flood, people with well-loved forms now seen no more. Well-loved forms now seen no more. That is what Savitri is seeing them. Well-loved form. She was all the beauties of nature, all the creations which were there, they were at one time very beloved. And the subtle images of things that were her witness spirit stood reviewing time. It is the spirit now which is seeing the entire past of Savitri you see here. And because it is the spirit is seeing, therefore it is not the question of transient eyes. It is seeing the entire continuity of time of the whole past is seen. Our sight is restricted. In fact, we don't really remember very far deep in the present past also. Past is out of the question for us, but even the present past we don't see at all here seen. All that she once had hoped and dreamed and been flew past her, eagle-winged, through memories of skies. Now, Savitri is awaking from her original somnolence and she is seeing the entire mental past of thought, in the fields of thought. And she hoped. What did she hope? What did she dream? What has she been? She hoped that something beyond mind will come. She dreamed of a possibility of something beyond mind appearing here, and she had been always there like that. She flew past her, eagle wing, swiftly, on a very high plane of consciousness, in the upper skies, through memories of skies, in a many-hued, gleaming inner dawn. Again, Savitri is awakening to the consciousness. She is getting out of the inconscient sleep this original somnolence, and therefore the dawn is coming there. Her life's broad highways and sweet bypaths lay mapped to her, sun clear, recording view. She sees now everything as if it is the sunlight itself which is showing everything to her. From the bright country of her childhood's days, and the blue mountains of her soaring youth, and the paradise groves and peacock wings of love, to joy clutched under the silent shadow of doom, in a last turn where heaven rests with hell. Bright country of her childhood, soaring mountains of youth, peacock groves of love. Savitri has taken birth in the human time, and she is brought up in the palace like a royal princess. She is a royal princess, and with all kind of facilities, luxuries, she is brought up here. Childhood days and soaring youth, she is growing up into a powerful youth, a radiant person, and peacock wings of love. She is meeting a lover in the forest, and she sees that the lover is also getting accompanied by doom, by death. She sees the entire past. Now, although this looks to be something of the current birth of Savitri, it actually belongs to a much deeper past. As if these things are happening somewhere else, she is in the transcendent, and she sees from the transcendent her birth, her childhood, her growth, her becoming youth, and meeting the lover and facing death. So all that things she is saying about there is in that good thing. In a last turn where heaven race with hell. Yes, it is actually the race between heaven and hell, and until now heaven was not able to catch hell in the race, was not able to overtake hell in the race. But now a moment has come when heaven must overtake hell. 12 passionate months late in a day of fate. Now, about this passage, we have something we can kind of connect this thing with what Mother has said. One day, Mother writes in her diary about her earlier passing. My heart has fallen asleep down to the very depths of my being. Down to the very depths of my being. Merely, my heart has fallen asleep down to the very depths of my being. Merely asleep? I cannot believe it. She never sleeps actually. I think it is completely hushed, perhaps forever. From sleep one awakes. From this quietness there is no falling back. And since that day I had not observed any relapse. In place of something very intensely concentrated, which for a long while was intermittently tumultuous, has come an immensity so vast and calm and untroubled, filling my being, or rather my being has melted into that path. Or how could that which is limitless be contained in a form? And these great mountains with the serene contours, this is what Savitri described, great mountains of our youth, you see. And these great mountains, serene contours, which I see from my window, she is standing in Japan and seeing from the window the range of mountains, you see. And these great mountains, with their serene contours, which I see from my window, range after majestic range up to the very horizon, are in perfect harmony with the rhythm of this being, filled with an infinite peace. Lord, could thou ever have taken possession of thy kingdom? What a beautiful sentence. Lord, couldst thou have taken possession of thy kingdom, She wants him to take the possession of the kingdom, you see. Or rather, of this part of the kingdom, for the body is still obscure and ignorant. Means she sees the entire ranges of mountains and all that, so beautiful and all that, and she is wondering whether Lord has taken possession of this kingdom at all, you see. It is Lord's beauty itself she sees there, or rather of this part of the kingdom, for the body is still obscure and ignorant. Slow to respond, without plasticity, will it be purified one day like the rest, and will die victory, then be total. It matters little. The instrument is what thou wantest. It is to be, and its bliss is unalloyed. This was in 1917. She is remembering here. Then mother recalls another beautiful incident. She used to go out, this is again in Japan only. Sorry, she is recounting in 1956, one of the things, but about pertaining to Japan. When I used to go out in the evenings toward the end of the afternoon, I used to go for a walk with Monsieur X to see the countryside, go walking in the mountains, the neighboring villages. I used to lock my door, she says, and then she used to go out. And then when she would come back, she would see that the door is wrong, her room is locked completely. She would go out, but when she would come and enter the room, she would see that in the room there are flowers. And she was all the while wondering how the flowers have come there in the room. And later on, then she knows that this lady who is there, Madame X, she says here, she used to put those flowers in her room. Now she was wondering how she could do that when the door was locked. The door is locked and all that thing. Then on one occasion, she tells her, I put those flowers in the room. Madame X tells mother, I put those flowers in the room there, you see. So beautiful, you see. Now mother said that this lady knew how to materialize and dematerialize. She could enter the room by dematerializing herself, again materializing in the room, and again coming out like that. That is exactly what happened in the case of Narad coming down from heaven to Ashokati's palace. He is materializing in the palace, entering the palace, and then he tells about the future of Savitri and all that. He goes back, he dematerializes and assumes his spiritual body. So mother says that this lady, she knew that she could materialize and dematerialize herself. She was putting those flowers. Now all these are the beautiful things she remembers as a part of the past, you see. This also belongs to that kind of a thing. Actually, I have narrated this thing in that book, Running Through Savitri, you see. I am weary of the childish impatience which cries and blasphemes and denies the ideal, because the golden mountains cannot be reached in our little day. The golden mountains cannot be reached in our little day. Therefore I am crying. But Savitri is remembering those golden mountains now here, or in a few momentary centuries, you see. Childhood's days, mountains, peacock wings of love, shadow of doom. All those things she is recollecting in the occult sense, in the spiritual, in the occult sense only, basically. See. 12 passionate months led in a day of fate. Now, you can also imagine that all these things she is remembering in the transcendent. It is the transcendent Savitri who is seeing the future, how it's going to unfold, and this is the description of that, you see. Then we have a powerful sentence here. An absolute supernatural darkness falls on man sometimes when he draws near to God. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. Forced out from the protecting ignorance and flung back on his naked primal need, he at length must cast from him his surface soul and be the unguarded entity within. That hour had fallen now on Savitri. An absolute supernatural darkness falls on man. That hour had fallen now on Savitri. Well, I mean, he's describing in the context of this was the day when Satyavan must die, and Savitri is preparing for that. And when she is meeting that particular day, there is a kind of a total supernatural darkness falling on Savitri. Savitri is unaware of what to do, how to move. She is clueless in what manner she should do things and all that thing. She is totally clueless actually. And it is a kind of a darkness. Means she has no idea what to do, in what manner to do. But then when she is in that state of indrawn concentration, suddenly the divine voice comes and guides Savitri. Savitri, wake up. Remember why you have taken birth. And then she starts a yoga, finds her soul, and then prepares herself to meet the day of Satyavan's death. An absolute, you see, this is an absolute supernatural darkness, not an ordinary darkness at all, you see. When draws near to God, sometimes when he draws, man, when he draws, well, he must be an exceptional man. It is not for me and you. He must be really an exceptional man. Savitri is an exceptional man, or the mental being, man in the sense of mental being. And therefore, it happens only for the exceptional men. In other words, Shivandu Savitri is actually not for you and me, it is for Savitri herself. You see, he is describing the story of Savitri, and the entire description is for her. It does not directly apply to us. We might get some clues, some hints, something here and there, but actually the entire factual description is for the Savitri which is there in the Savitri, you see. An absolute supernatural darkness. Now, on man when he draws near to God. Well, before we come to that, let us take this line. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. Nature is helpless. Nature can't help you at all. You are meeting a supernatural darkness against which nature is helpless. And therefore you can't really get the help from nature at all. Then where from? Either from your soul or from a source high above. From a source, either from your soul or from a source high above, you see. It is from there only you can get the proper help. Nature is totally ineffective in the context of this supernatural darkness, you see. Now, in 1945, I think it is 1945, let me check. Yeah, in 1945, Shivandu wrote this line on a chit pad. See, in 1945, he was not really writing anything. But then he used to mutter something, and then Champaklal was very clever. He knew that Shivandu is muttering some lines on Savitri, and therefore he used to give him chit pads for writing something. And Shivandu used to scribble on small square pieces of paper like that, you see. On that piece of paper, he wrote the line, "An hour arrives when fail on nature's means." An hour arrives when fail all nature's means, on that chit pad in 1945. Now, when Nirodbaram copied this line in his spare copy, ledger, he wrote it, "An hour comes when fail all nature's means." Shivandu arrives has become comes in Nirodbaram's copy.
Why did he do that?
Pardon?
Why did he do that?
Well, it happened. He saw the sense and kind of wrote it down. See, he saw the kind of sense. See, I mean, he's writing, well, he must have definitely wrote arrives, but when copying, something happened to his mind or whatever it is, he wrote comes. Now, naturally, The revised edition restores Shivendhu's arrives in the final 1993. So in the revised edition we have got an hour arrives when fail all nature's means. But that is not the end of the story. That is not the end of the story, you see. Although Nirodbaran miscopied, so to say, the line from that thing, Shivendhu made number of changes in this passage while dictating. And while dictating this passage again, revising this passage again, Shivendhu heard or retained Nirodbaran's comes. He did not dismiss it. He was quite comfortable with comes. He retained it. Because there are changes now in the entire passage. So now the sanctity of the original arrives on a small piece of passage which was not revised, gets kind of diluted to some extent. And therefore, because Shivendhu has revised it, has accepted comes as it is there, he doesn't find anything wrong in comes, you see. So, the question arises whether we should restore arrives for comes or keep comes. The editors of revised edition, they prefer to make it arrives. I would say when Shivendhu has heard it, Shivendhu has accepted it, Shivendhu has passed it, Shivendhu has revised it, then comes has acquired a kind of an authority, kind of a sanction, and it is not once. She writes in the fair copy comes, the typescript is read out to Shivendhu with comes, the proofs are read out to Shivendhu again with comes. At every stage, comes is retained. So Shivendhu's sanction is there for that comes, although it may not be originally his. Now, at the same time, comes has a certain kind of, what shall I say, connection with some of the early. You see, this line Shivendhu wrote not for the first time on the chit pad. He had written in his earlier manuscripts also. And in the earlier manuscript, it was comes and not arrives. While Shivendhu was writing on the chit pad, he made it arrives. But his own earlier manuscript had comes. So now whether that comes with the repetition of all these revisions, etc., should be retained or it should be changed to comes, that becomes a question of debate to some extent, you see. But still, I will say, well, before we say something about that, see, if you read this line, an hour comes when fail all nature's means, you had to take this hour here disyllabic for the sake of meter. The hour comes when fail all nature's means. You followed? Means hour has to become disyllabic here. Now, this is not very unusual in Savitri. Hour is at times used as a word with two syllables, hour. In fact, the mother recites it, it was the hour before the gods awake, very clearly you see. So it can be taken as a disyllabic word also. In fact, many times Shivendhu uses certain words like desire. Normally, most of the time we say it is disyllabic, desire. But sometimes Shivendhu says desire, three syllables. Conspire, inspire, three syllables. Although they are taken generally as disyllabic. So in that sense, the English does allow hour to become a disyllabic word also. So with the disyllabic, meter becomes an hour comes when fail all nature's means. We have got I am, spondy here, and nature's I am. Now, in the case of the arise, there is no question at all. Arise means it becomes now. An hour comes. Well, an hour arrives when fail all nature's may. An hour arrives. There is no question of meter at all. You can take hour in that case both monosyllabic and disyllabic. If it is hour is monosyllabic, then an hour arrives when fail all nature's meter is free. If you take it as disyllabic, then an hour arrives. The second foot becomes an anaphist. I am, anaphist, etc., like that, you see. So, that is from the metrical point of view. So, I think, as far as the meter is concerned, this line can stand as it is. There is no difficulty about that thing at all, you see. Now, the other thing is, you see, now, we are talking in the context of an absolute supernatural darkness falls on man sometimes when he fails, when he draws near to God. Well, that is a statement. And then he is clarifying it further. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. An hour arrives when fail all nature's means. Now you see the difference in sound. The quietness with which comes, is lost with arrives. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. An hour arrives when fail all nature. It is a kind of a little emphatic, jarring, so to say. The hour is coming quietly, without making noise, so to say, quietly. And therefore comes is that way a better word than arrives from the point of view of the construction of the line. An hour, see, it's too dramatic. An hour arrives is a little bit of a dramatic, a forceful kind of a. Whereas an hour comes when fail on, it is sort of natural, you see, in that way. So I would definitely go for comes. An hour, you don't agree? You see the point? You see, when an hour arrives, when fail all nature's means, you see, it is a little, the different kind of a rhythm, a different kind of a sound effect, you see. When fail all nature, with an hour comes when fail all nature's means, that alliteration of am here and am here is very powerful here, you see. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. Now that is as far as the meter is concerned here. Now, on man sometimes when when he draws near to God, the darkness falls. Do we have examples of this thing in the spiritual history of man? That nature's means fail when man is drawing close to God. Well, there are a few examples in the history of nature. In the Gita itself, we have got Arjuna. Arjuna has lost his spirit of warrior, as a warrior. He has succumbed to some kind of a deprivation. There is a fall in his character and all that thing. Now it is that which has to be seen. That is the hour when all nature's means have failed for Arjuna. And it is only Sri Krishna who could revive Arjunahood, his power as a Kshatriya. He was a necessary instrument for achieving something as far as Krishna is concerned. But the spirit of Arjuna has at that moment sagged. It has fallen there, and that is not going to help. So in the case of Arjuna, we have that specific example of his falling there. And then the Gita comes out, and then Bishop his spirit, and is again here. So it is not nature who is helping him. It is the divine teacher, the divine guide, the divine friend himself who is helping him there at that point of time, you see. In the case of spiritual people also, there are moments when you are absolutely helpless, but then something suddenly happens. And the best example is, in our own case, the example of Savitri. Savitri is clueless. She does not know what to do. And she is fumbling around here whether she should do this, she should do that. Absolutely no clue is well. And she is grieving. Tomorrow, my husband will die. My husband is going to die. And she has no method of meeting that. She has no means of meeting that moment of his death at all. And then suddenly the divine voice comes here. Nature's means have failed. But the divine voice comes and tells Savitri, Savitri, do yoga, and that kind of a thing. And harbor my force in your soul and meet death. That is what Savitri told at that moment of time. So that is another example here we have got. The third example is, of course, the example of Christ himself, Jesus Christ. It's a very powerful example. He is on the cross and all nature's sins have failed. And then ultimately he says, he gives up. Yes, This is what he says, you see. And he gives up the ghost at the last moment, you see. The example of Christ on the crucifixion, on the cross, is a very specific example of nature's means failing. It is only God who can help him at that moment of time, you see. Now, this is an extraordinary context. Although it is spoken for man, it is for the collectivity. It is not that every one of us is going to meet it, arrive at it. It is for the exceptional individuals. It is for those who draw near to God. We have not done sufficient tapasya, sadhana to become close to God, you see. How many of us come to that exceptional expectation? We continue to be happy in ignorance. We continue to remain safe under the protecting ignorance, and possibly once in a while desire to get out of it. The desire which does not have much force, much intensity in it to get out of it. Desire which could just be some vital wish or a mental formulation, a vague passing idea, a notion, a fancy. We live with the surface soul in the outward nature, in the transient ego self, but there is the tussle in the greatness of life, demanding the greatness of a true self. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. Here are some examples. You see, he had to give some examples. This is true in the case of the avatars and great vibhutis. I don't know whether such an hour had come in the case of Vivekananda, for instance. And perhaps it did come. But he was a very strong person. And he did not believe God and all that kind of thing. He used to challenge Ramakrishna, show me your God. And then only I will accept you, that kind of a thing. So it was a moment in his life. And Ramakrishna showed him that devotees crossed to complete his work. Nothing could be done when Sita fell under the sway of phantom deer in the Ramayana. You see, she sees a deer and she wore the skin of the deer to make a garment for her, you see. And then she is trapped and abducted and all that kind of thing that happened. Time spirit, Arjuna, destroyer, etc. Did such an hour arrive in the life of Shyamandu? Yes, it did. When nature's means failed. When I was arrested and hurried to the Lal Bazar Hazrat, I was shaken in faith for a while. I was shaken for a while, for I could not look into the heart of his intention. Therefore, I faltered for a moment and cried out in my heart to him, what is this that has happened to me? Even is asking when he's taken up position. I believed that I had a mission to work for the people of my country, and until that work was done, I should have thy protection. Why your protection was not there at the time? Why am I here now? Why then am I here and on such a charge? A day passed, and a second day, and a third, when a voice came from within. Wait and see. An hour had fallen on him. Supernatural darkness is there. He is asked to wait, wait, wait. And then the voice tells him, wait and see. Then I grew calm and waited. I was taken from Lal Bazar to Alipur and was placed for 1 month in a solitary cell apart from men. There I waited day and night for the voice of God within me to know what He had to say to me, to learn what I had to do. So this is the hour which has fallen, and here it comes the now voice to him. So it is not nature which can help. It is something else which is helping here. In this seclusion, the earliest realization, the first lesson came to me. I remembered then that a month or more before my arrest, a call had come to me to put aside all activity. He was told before he was arrested, forget about all the activities, political, etc. But then Shivindu did not obey that call at that time. To go in seclusion and to look into thyself, so that I might enter into closer communion with him, I was weak and could not accept the call. He was given the hint. The possibility was there. He was told that thing. But he says, I was weak. I was there, etc. It seemed to me that he spoke to me again and said, the bonds you had not the strength to break, because he was weak and he was kind of attached. He had bonds for the country, for the good of the etc. etc. He could not break those bonds, you see. That he spoke again and said, the bonds you had not strength to break, I have broken for you. Because it is not my will, nor was it my intention that it should continue, etc. etc. And then Shivandu, the voice, the person who is guiding him, he puts the Gita in his hand. It is Sri Krishna himself who is speaking to him, and he puts the Gita in his hand. And at that time, then Shivandu practices the yoga of the Gita in the jail, and has all those realizations. The realizations of the Gita in the jail itself. Within 2 months, he got all the wonderful experiences to see, etc. etc. This is the dharma that for the salvation of humanity was cherished in the seclusion of this peninsula from old. It is to give this illusion that India is rising. She does not rise as other countries do for self or when she is strong to trample on the weak. She is rising to shed the eternal light entrusted to her over the world. India always existed for humanity and not for herself, and humanity and not herself that she must be great. That was the hour when failed all nature's means. In the life of Shivandu himself, you see. And then again, of course, Shivandu says, when the case opened in the court, he saw everywhere, in the magistrate, in the prisoners, everybody, in the lawyers, who? Vasudeva, 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 Krishna, 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 everywhere, he says, Vasudeva, everywhere. How do I fear? And then he says, I have lost my fear completely because of that, because now it is Krishna himself who is doing everything here. And the fear which I had, that had completely gone. My lawyer, Sri himself, he does not see him there. He sees Krishna standing there and defending him there. See. Months and books held saving. Shijut Chittaranjan Das. So that was Shivandu in the life. So an hour did fall in his life, you see. So you can see how autobiographical Shivandu Savitri is, and our falls comes on man when fail all nature's means. We'll read a couple of things what the mother has said. Yesterday morning, the last veil was almost rent. The last stronghold of the blind and ignorant personality seemed to be on the point of yielding. For the first time, I thought I had understood what true impersonal service was, and the obstacle separating me from the integral realization, effectively very fragile to me and on the point of disappearing definitely. But the necessity of my outer duties tore me away from the beneficent and happy contemplation. Necessity of my outer duties tore me away, and therefore my contemplation of the Lord. And when I was obliged to return to the outer consciousness, the veil closed again, and now seems to me darker than ever. Why this fall into the inconscience of night after so great a light? That is the moment she is arriving here in April 1914, you see, at such an early age, you see. Oh Lord, Lord, wilt thou not then let me escape at last from ignorance and become one with thee? Now that I have known and seen so well what delusion is. Why this night after great and pure light? Why this night after so great and pure light? So she sees light, but then again there is a night there. Why? All my being is tense and a call of it. And then on another occasion, Lord, thou didst speak to me to the lips of one, those who had known thee. Passages from the prayers and meditation. And this was again in December 1916. We read one more passage. Thou hast subjected me to a hard discipline. Rung after rung, I climbed the ladder which leads to thee, and at the summit of this ascent, thou hast made me taste the perfect joy of identity with thee. Then, obedient to thy command, rung after rung, I have descended to outer activities and external states of consciousness, re-entering into contact with these worlds that I live to discover. About Christ we have. Narada was asked about the why of pain in this world, and if it was God who was responsible for it, for the pain, you see. This earth is full of labor, packed with pain, but it is nature who is using it to script man. Pain to script man. But a Savior who comes to redeem it must share it first. Then only the dark account can be settled. His crucified voice proclaims, I am God. Yes, all is God. Peace back heaven's deathless reply. Christ on the cross. His crucified voice proclaims, I am God. Yes, all is God. Could this be connected with the hour that arrives when feel all nature's means? Yes, they do, possibly. In St. Matthew's, we have now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land. 6th hour from the morning, 6th hour darkness over the land, and to the 9th hour from 12 o'clock till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice saying, Eli, Eli, etc. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That is according to St. Matthew. Why hast thou forsaken me? This darkened at the death of Jesus. At the death itself is in the darkest state. An absolute supernatural darkness falls on man sometimes when he draws near to God. Jesus had offered up himself as the Passover lamb, and there were supernatural signs and workers were witnessed on the day, etc. The Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky. Again, in the life of Moses. And there was the darkness that helped Moses. Darkness that helped Moses. There was the darkness for 3 days over the land of Egypt. And behind the darkness was the God of Moses and Abraham, etc., etc. In the Bhakti Yoga, there are many instances of that kind, how the Bhakta, the devotee, feels totally lost because he does not see his God there at all, his deity at all. There are many instances of that kind. We have here in Savitri a passage. An abyss yawned suddenly beneath her heart. Savitri's heart, beneath her heart. She is doing the yoga and there is an abyss beneath her heart. An abyss yawned suddenly beneath her heart. A vast and nameless fear dragged at her nerves as drags a wild beast its half-slaughtered prey. That is how Savitri is dragged, you see. It seemed to have no den from which it sprang. It was not hers, but hid its unseen cause. Then rushing came its vast and fateful fount, a formless dread with shapeless, endless wings, filling the universe with a dangerous breath. A denser darkness than night could bear, a denser darkness than night could bear. See, that is what Savitri is saying here. Envelop the heaven and possess the earth. A rolling surge of silent death. There cannot be any greater darkness than that. A rolling surge of silent death. It came curving round the far edge of the quaking globe, effacing heaven with its enormous stride. It wailed to expunge the choked and anguished air and end the fable of the joy of life. The joy of life itself is a fable, and that is what the dread is doing to end it. It seemed to cry to her without thought or word the message of the dark eternity and the awful meaning of its silence out of some sullen, monstrous vast reason, out of an abysmal deep of grief and fear, imagined by some blind, regardless self, a consciousness of being without its joy, empty of thought, incapable of bliss, that felt life blank and nowhere found a soul, a voice to the dumb, anguish to the heart. So this is what 3.6 is. A point she had reached where life must be in vain, or in her unbound element awake, her will must cancel her body's her will must cancel her body's destiny. That is the issue. Again, in the case of Savitri, a point she had reached where life must be in vain, of no use at all, of no consequence. There is super. She is helpless, and she has to kind of just yield to the circumstances. Or in her unbound element, what is not yet in her, those elements awake, her will must cancel her body's destiny, death. She must become strong, or she must just accept as fate accomplish what is meant for her. A point she had reached where life must be in vain, or in her unbound element awake, her will must cancel. Her will must cancel. Now that needs a lot of tapasya, that needs a lot of sadhana, that the will can become strong enough and meet the body's destiny, your destiny, your fate, you see. To meet fate, you have to really do a lot of sadhana, you see. Qualifying sadhana is required for that. For only the unbound spirit's timeless power can lift the yoke imposed by birth in time. Unless you have that kind of will, nothing will happen. Only the unbound spirit's timeless power can lift the yoke. So in order to acquire that timeless power, you have to do the qualifying sadhana, qualifying yoga, imposed by birth on time. Only the self that builds this figure of self can raise the fixed interminable line. So you have to awake to your own self. That will has to come out, can raise the fixed interminable line that joins this changing name, these numberless lives, these new oblivious personalities, and keep still lurking in our conscious acts. the trail of old forgotten thoughts and deeds, disown the legacy of our buried self, the burdensome ashy to our vanished form, accepted blindly by the body and soul. So only the cell that bears the figure, he alone can do and remove that burden from you.
I have a question
Yeah.
here. Unborn.
Unborn element.
What is the meaning of unborn? Only the unborn spirit.
Yeah, you see, you have got double here. Unborn element and unborn spirit.
Yes.
Yeah. Unborn spirit, spirit which does not take birth.
Which has not taken birth and will not.
Will not take birth.
Will not.
Means he is selfless. He is without birth. He is there always. He is not born. He is permanently there. He is always there. Eternally there. In this particular line, it is that spirit. Self-born. You can say it is self-born. Born of its own. It is always there, you see. Whereas unborn element, those which have not emerged yet. Those who have not come into permanence, into action.
Like what?
They are not emerged.
Not yet.
Like what?
Her power, her courage, her will, if they have to come out fully, then it means that they have taken birth.
I thought it's...
In her unborn element awake. So those have not taken yet birth, they are about to take birth, and her will then will cancel body's destiny.
It is very interesting. Unborn.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the word is the same, but the sense is different. Element, the nature, the very DNA of Savitri. They have not yet emerged from that. Whereas here, unborn spirit, the spirit is without birth. He is birthless. He is always there. Self-born, always.
It is very important. I have seen mistakes in the translation.
See, metaphysically, this is a very complex structure that we see. And it is not the sheer repetition of the word unborn, unborn.
But the first unborn element...
Unborn element in Savitri is those which have not yet come into action, into activity, which are not emerged.
Okay, but here in this time, it means the will.
So once they are born, then her will can cancel the body's destiny. If they come into action, if they emerge fully in their power and capacity, then her body's destiny can be cancelled by her will.
The second one is eternal, actually.
Huh?
Second one is eternal.
Yeah. Second is eternal. Yeah, you can say. But at the same time, it is there. It is not without birth. It is there, present. It is a self-born. You see. For instance, Brahma, the eternal himself, Brahma, he is self-born. He is not, a product of somebody. He is not an issue. He is self-born, eternal. So, although the adjective is the same in both the cases, the sense is different. What does this dictionary say? Unborn. I don't know whether it is given at all. Yeah, unborn. Existing without birth or beginning. Not yet born. Still to be born.
Still to be born.
In the Life Divine, Shipenu says, by attaining to the unborn beyond all becoming, we are liberated from the lower birth, etc., etc. And have these bodies to an embodied soul that is eternal. It is not born, nor dies, etc., etc.
Yeah, but you can still draw on the power. If it's born or not, it doesn't matter. You can still draw on the power. If it is born or not, doesn't matter. It's there.
Yeah, he says now, Jivatman, again, from latest on yoga, Shepanu says, latest on yoga, Jivatman is for me the unborn, who presides over the individual being.
Yeah, but he's
The
there.
Atman is the central being. He's always there, presiding, unborn.
Yeah, he will not be born, but you can draw on the power.
Yeah.
So he's there, so you can draw him in manifestation. You don't have to, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. But it makes sense, of course.
Now, in fact, there is a clarification in one of the later Samshayavanu. In one of the later Shivanu says, it is necessary to understand clearly the difference between the evolving soul, that is psychic being, and a pure Atman, self or spirit. Atman, that is self or spirit. The pure self is unborn. The pure self is unborn. Does not pass through death or birth. It is independent of birth or body, mind or life or this manifested nature. The divine is the unborn eternal who has no origin. There is and can be nothing before him from which he proceeds. This is self-born. Because he is one, timeless and absolute, as said in the Gita. So this unborn is eternal, again, Brahma. This unborn spirit. Whereas this unborn, which are not emerged, which are not taken birth, which are not come into action, into activity. So it is kind of clever on part of Shevendra, the poet, to use the same word and bring out different shades of its meaning, you see. He is giving a lesson in metaphysics, you see, basically. You see. And then, of course, only the self is that we have already seen.